listening to Make It, a podcast by Bonsai Creative that helps creatives in film get where they're going faster by sharing the advice, knowledge, and insights of professional creatives across the film industry. I'm your host, Chris Barkley.
Hi, everybody. I am Nick Frangione, director, producer, writer. You might know my film Buck Run, and I'm currently working on my next film called Our Summer in Soyang.
Nick Frangione, welcome to the Make It podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Anytime. And as we are recording this, we have newly taken the leap bravely into 2022.
Oh my God. Yes.
And there's been a lot of descriptors of 21. One of the most common is, where did it go? It went by really fast for a lot of people. I would include myself in that group, but I would love to start, since you are our first interview of 2022.
Oh, cool.
What a blessing.
Yeah.
I would love to start just by asking you how your 21 went. How would you describe it?
2021 was wild. It was great. It was it was sort of the culmination of several years of work since making Buck Run, where a lot of different ideas, business ideas, creative ideas, finally came together and actually materialized into something that we can actually do. Whereas before there were years in between Buck Run and 2021 where there was a lot of struggle and trying to figure out how we were going to make the ideas that we had, Nancy, my fiance, and my producing partner and I had, make those ideas actually work and make a living at this.
Yeah, I watched Buck Run. It came out in 19.
Oh, cool.
Right?
Yeah, that was when we premiered at Palm Springs.
We're definitely going to talk about Buck Run. I have a lot of questions around that.
Cool.
Great work. I just have to say that you have a beautiful eye for telling a story. It's the thing that doesn't show up in film school, which is, as a director, how are you going to tell the story? Are you going to be esoteric like Terrence Malick? Are you going to be, how are you going to be? Yeah. And I have to say, I liked your eye, and we'll talk more about that in a second. But I want to go back a little bit before that, maybe a bit before that. Who was young Nick? Who was young Nick? And most importantly, was there a moment that sticks out to you where you said, I'm going to try for filmmaking instead of for dance, which is, you were brought up around dance with your mother.
Yes. Yeah. I never actually, dance was something that scared the hell out of me. My mom told me that I should become a dancer. She's actually, what she said to me was, she was like, if you want to have relationships, if you want to get girls, you should learn how to dance. And I was terrified. And I went to some of her classes, but I felt like such a ragamuffin. I never had the dancer, clothes, which I could have gotten. Mm-hmm. So I went to a few classes, but I never learned. What I did end up doing was a lot of acting. So young Nick was really an actor. And I thought that I would make a living as an actor. I thought that was going to be my thing.
Yeah.
And I was doing a lot of that in a lot of indie films. That was sort of that's where I came from. And I was just kind of a ragamuffin, bohemian kid in San Francisco. That was where I really started.
Yeah, because you made that drive out to San Francisco when you were 18 years old.
Yes.
And we'll talk about that down the line in a moment. Yeah. Between the time your mom unfortunately passed away, when you're about 14, and then in between to 18, were you getting the itch then, or was that more
the filmmaking itch.
Or were you more sort of insular at that moment and it all hit you like a ton of bricks?
I had no idea. I mean, I grew up in a small town. When I looked at movies, all I saw was what was on the screen. So I didn't even think about filmmaking. I thought about filmmaking. That time between when my mother passed away and when I drove to San Francisco was just really awful. But I didn't think about filming until I was in San Francisco, and a San Francisco filmmaker that I became friends with was like, if you want to act, you should just make your own stuff.
Yeah.
Because, no one's going to cast you. And especially in San Francisco, he's like, there's no movies up here. So, you should make stuff. It's going to be really hard. It's going to be really hard to get cast. And I was like, oh, okay. So I started making things, and he was like, yeah, you should direct it and you should write it and you should edit it. And I just found it to be a more all-encompassing experience directing a film.
Yeah, people have taken that path. It seems to work for some folks. I think it's funny because in my experience, the people in the financing world want to be filmmakers and actors, and the filmmakers and actors want to have money stress go away the way that VCs and investors have a low money stress. And so in San Francisco, there are a lot of VCs that have producer on their bio or in their resume where they've been part of a film here or there. And now they're a producer without having to be on the ground, every day, sort of reading scripts and trying to do development work. Yeah. So, hey, that to me, that's accurate of that Bay Area scene as well. Do you agree, or am I talking shit here?
Yeah, the Bay. I mean, it was really like I came up with like indie, the Bay Area indie filmmakers. That was my whole. That was the whole thing, and I came up with Bay Area actors. And you're right. I mean, because if you try to make a movie in the Bay Area, you have to wear like a jillion hats. You can't just. My very first feature film, we literally had 3 crew members. Yeah, it was me, the DP, and a guy that did camera and that did lights and sound, which was a mistake, by the way. Yeah. But you have to sort of, wear multiple hats, and there's a big blend.
How did you get the opportunity to direct Roxy in 14?
I went to an acting school in San Francisco, and the actors that were there, they were doing this improv every Tuesday night. We'd have this studio where you kind of like, work stuff out. And they developed this whole story in this improvisation. And at one point they asked me, I was kind of like the resident filmmaker guy, because I'd made 2 short films. that was like the qualifier. Right. Yeah. And they said, why don't we make this into a short film? And I was just kind of an idiot at the time. I was very naive. And I was like, well, screw it. Let's make a feature. Why don't we just make a feature? How hard can it be? Can't be that hard. And it was really hard. It was really, really hard. Yeah. And but they really, like, we all just kind of invested in it in a myriad of ways. And that it was just like a couple years of shooting, literally on weekends. Yeah, it was wild.
I haven't. So in full disclosure, I haven't seen that.
It's fine.
I think it's on Tubi. I'm looking around for it.
Yeah, it's not.
But I'm gonna watch it. But I definitely saw Buck run, and to your point, I think that somewhere people know it's a difficult slog to make an independent feature film and to have a limited budget potentially and limited cast and limited crew. But that really doesn't sum up the toll it takes on the filmmaker's quality of life and their family. And we have a lot of filmmakers we're around, a couple of them I believe to be absolute auteurs. And they're terrified a little bit to jump back in to the fray because of the kind of body blows they took in the 1.5 to 2 years it takes to make a film, develop it, shoot it, post, distribute it. Yeah. And then meanwhile, they're getting easy checks or easier checks doing commercial work, music videos, et cetera. They're paying their rent. They're doing their thing, So it's like, man, but you really should be making a feature because that's what you're really great at. And you tell these amazing stories. How do I get you back in here? and promise you that it's not going to, push you to the edge again. Buck Run is about as far away from this as I could imagine. And those in the audience, if you want to watch it, it'd be a treat. It won Best Feature at Flicker's Rhode Island Festival, Fayetteville Film Festival, has some other wins as well. Yeah. But just going back to your mom briefly for a moment as a choreographer, do you see yourself making a musical in the future?
That's what I'm doing.
In honor of your mom?
That's literally what I'm doing. Yes. The next film, Our Summer in Soying, it's a modern dance musical. So they don't sing. They break into dance. I did not
know that, man. Wow.
Yeah. They don't sing. They dance, but and it's about my mom, and it's shot. We're shooting it in Taiwan, and it's about our last trip that we took together to Taiwan.
Can you give me are you going to act in this?
No.
Okay.
No. I don't think I don't know when I'll act again. Maybe I will. I don't know. I enjoy it far more behind the camera, but
right.
Yeah.
Man, this is awesome. So how do you plan to pull off the dancing without the singing?
I grew up with dancing without singing. So I don't even think about it. I grew up with watching modern dance performances. So that to me is what dancing is. I didn't really grow up with like watching musical theater. I mean, my mother did do cabaret. But I think that there's, it's the same concept, right? When emotions get really high, that's the whole concept of musicals. Emotions get really high, we break into song. It's the same concept with this. When emotions get really high, they just break into dance, and that's it.
Okay.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah, there's a foreign film vibe to that sort of tone.
Sure.
And I think about In the Heights, where those characters most of the time were talking their way through being sing-songy while they're dancing, right?
Yeah.
Versus just belting songs or the premise being music, like in La La Land, for example.
Yeah.
This is going to be a challenging concept, really interesting, but coming from someone who gets it like yourself and grew up with it, this is going to be super exciting. I can't wait to learn more about this offline. We talked about you making the drive or being driven out to San Francisco.
Yeah.
At 18. Now, what this audience doesn't know is that's no small feat. You're from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, small town Pennsylvania.
This was a complete culture shift, culture change. This is East Coast to West Coast. This is a massive time zone switch, and you're doing it at 18.
Yeah.
You attended the Sanford Meisner Technique School of Acting. So what was that conversation like with your dad? Because he drove you, right? Did he drive you?
He was great. No, we drove together. He was great. I mean, both of my parents are from California. I had a weird upbringing because my father's from Pasadena and my mom's from Antioch.
Yeah.
And my mom taught dance at Bucknell, which is like a very, it's like conservative rural Pennsylvania, but there's this liberal bastion that's there that I grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
So they were fine. I mean, my at that point it was just my father, but I think my mother assumed I would leave before she passed away. But my father was like, "Yeah, let's go to San Francisco. Why not?"
Totally into it.
He was great. Yeah, he was totally into it.
Supported you. And so how did you pick that area though, instead of staying in SoCal?
I was afraid of LA, to be totally honest.
Well, how come? You gotta break that down.
I was terrified. I just thought like, I had no idea how to break into the industry there. San Francisco just seemed like a much easier place and much more accepting place to start. It seemed like, New York terrified me. Philly terrified me, and LA terrified me. I just thought like, I'm going to get eaten alive. I had a feeling that the rejection that you face when you first try to get into the industry would be too much to handle for me at that age.
Yeah.
I thought I need to go to a place that I can like be let in.
Would you recommend that today? Like, has San Francisco changed too much in your mind, or would you recommend someone?
It's so techie now, but
there?
Recommend it to fit people that want to want to work in the industry.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, as long as you don't get stuck.
Okay.
Like if you're going there because you want to get into the industry, I don't know that San Francisco is a place where you can. I know there's a couple people that live up there who I know have broken into some things. But yeah, I mean, if it's a launching pad for you, then let it be a launching pad. And then when you're ready to move, make the move.
To LA
or New York or something like that. Yeah.
Got it. Where are you now, by the way?
I'm in LA.
Remind me. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah,
that's what I thought. Do you recommend Meisner to new actors?
Oh yeah. The Meisner technique is great. It's
Can
great.
you break it down for those listening that might be wanting might want to get into acting, and don't know which school, which book to dive into first?
The Meisner technique is, it's great. It trains you to be like moment to moment. That's the whole first half of it's a 2-year program. And you really just, you get trained how to be in the moment and not be in your head.
Yeah.
And I found that to be really important because I have I was extremely nervous. Just as a person, I was extremely, I mean, you can tell that from me saying that I didn't want to move to LA right away because it freaked me out. Yeah. I was really nervous as a person. So to act on stage or like in front of a camera was really terrifying. But if I could just be with that other person, I don't have to think about that problem. And then once it gets you to be able to be moment to moment, then it helps you break things down in a way that isn't so manipulated. It's like helping you break things down emotionally. So like, it's not like a beat, but they break things down into doings. I know a lot of actors will break things down into beats, or you learn that.
Yeah.
They'll break it down into a doing. So if I'm like right now, what I'm doing is explaining something, and you just now you qualify, you put that into every line. What am I doing in this line? So now not only am I in the moment, but I'm doing something with my line. I'm taking action with my line. So it has purpose behind it. At the very least, it has something behind it.
So is it pro improv?
I feel like if you improv with the Meisner technique, it's because it's about so much about repetition.
Okay.
And I don't think people really talk like that.
Yeah.
So I think people do improv with the Meisner technique, but I don't think it really works. I don't think it leads anywhere. I think it's it can be very it can be a lot of repetition, and it's weird.
Yeah, we have a past guest, Matt Williams, who's an actor and just did a lead role. And one of the things he layered on top of his sort of study was I believe he took 6 months worth of improv classes at Third Coast Comedy.
Oh, great.
And just to see what that was like. I don't know if he was good. I don't know if there is a good. I guess good is just how fast is your retort and how funny is it.
Yeah.
But as an actor, I don't know how it necessarily helps you unless, you have the freedom from the director to
do it,
to push those limits, right?
Right. Yeah. That's
Maybe.
true.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating to me. I could talk about that part of it all day. So you're up in the Bay Area, you're learning how to act, and then suddenly something snaps and hits you. I got to make my own stuff to get into the film.
Yeah.
How did you learn how to direct?
It was trial by fire. The guy, this filmmaker, Eric Escobar was his name. He was a Sundance filmmaker who was really amazing, and he was making a film, and he was holding auditions, and I was completely wrong for the part, and he was like, "Yeah, let's." But I was like, "I really want to meet you," because not a lot of directors came through San Francisco like that. So I was like, "I really want to meet you at the very least." And he met with me, and that was when he told me, "You should just make your own stuff." And he actually ended up producing the first short film that I ever made. So he got all the the gear. Mm-hmm. And he was just like, "Yeah, just do it." He helped me write. I wrote the short film for like a year, and then he produced it for me. And he was just there with me on set and just sort of gave me, tips and kind of helped, in a very fluid way, help guide me.
That's amazing. So almost mentorship for you.
Yes, very much so. Very much so.
Because I remember the first thing that Nick and I shot down in Atlanta, and what we did, we went into it knowing that we were going to make countless errors because we didn't know what we didn't know. We had no clue how this was going to go. Yeah. It was a comedy special. We didn't even know if the comedian was going to be funny because we couldn't get a consistent hit from this guy. Like, he was funny this night, not funny that night. So we get in there and we say, you know what? No matter what, we're going to go through it. and then everything we want to see happen better, let's write it down on a pad. By the end of the night, we had like 2 columns of new rules, new things. And because we had learned how to learn years ago in different careers and different areas of focus,
right,
we're able to take a giant leap between that moment and the next thing we filmed, which was an award-winning short. So I think that it sounds like you did that, because there's no way you can go from, I don't know what I'm doing on this short film to what you did with Buck Run.
Sure.
That seems like a giant gap and giant leap. So what was your learning process after that first short or two? How were you able to kind of go through and check mark, ooh, that didn't work, that worked, that didn't work?
I think the biggest mistake that I was making was I really thought that movies were all about acting.
Okay.
Because I had studied acting. So I thought, well, if the performances are good, then the movie will be good. And I had no concept about all of the technical aspects of movie making. No concept about how it should be. Like when you shoot a movie, you're telling a whole story just in the way that you shoot it, and the sound design and everything. So I was really actor focused. And because I was so actor focused, I actually struggled with directing actors because I was so focused on that. I didn't know how to create an environment around them that just allowed for good performance. I was just like nitpicking about everything, and we would go down these weird avenues and it wouldn't work. So I learned that I figured that out, that I was doing that. And I realized that, making a film has a lot to do with the way that you shoot it. It's a visual storytelling, medium. So I need to learn how to shoot movies. I learned how to write better. And God, I think those are the main things. That's the main stuff. I think that mainly I learned that, I was too focused on performance, especially coming into Buck Run, where I'm working with these veteran actors who have been in like a jillion things.
Right.
How could I come into that process and think that I can tell them how they should or shouldn't perform? It doesn't make any sense. So it just completely blew my whole concept of what directing meant wide open, because I'm like, I can't approach this movie this way. This way that I've been thinking. It just won't work. Yeah. So it's really been all about, how do I create an environment around the actors such that the performances just happen? How can I facilitate things more so than how can I make something happen? The more you try to make something happen, the worse it gets, I think.
Great.
Because you're just forcing something.
No, that's great advice. The director's kind of like the CEO in a way.
Yeah.
Or at least the co-CEO with the lead producer, maybe the line producer. Right. You're not really supposed to, jam everything home yourself.
No.
Stress
it's
yourself
awful.
out. Yeah.
It's awful. I would drink a 6-pack every night that we shot Roxy. Literally. Somebody would bring me a 6-pack at the end of the day because I was so stressed. It was awful.
I don't deny it at all. That sounds about right to me for first time directing, for sure. Yeah. Do you have a North Star for directing? Is there someone you said to yourself, damn, that's a great director, and if I can get there,
I always really love, I always mispronounce her name, Louise Archambault, the French Canadian director. I love the film. I love the film Gabrielle. It's like, I think it's just like the perfect film. I thought it's very poetic. I like it because it's very poetic. It's very, it's beautiful. It's heartfelt. It's authentic, but it's not like super raw and realistic just for the purposes of being raw and realistic. It has a sense of magic to it. So
is that based on a book?
I don't know. I have no idea if it was or not.
I can't put my finger on. I'll research it. I'll have our crack team over here look up that film and find out if that is in fact the case. It's just to the they're on it. We'll get to the bottom of that right away. Buck Run. I want to get to it.
Sure.
We said we were going to talk about it. Came out in 2019.
Yeah.
And I found myself, as I'm watching it, having so many thoughts, both about the film, a lot about Nolan Lyon's performance.
Mm-hmm. I love Nolan.
That I thought was tremendous. And it was very personal to me, just kind of like going through it, thinking about the film as it sits as an indie film, knowing what that was like, knowing what some of your struggles were. And I hope I can ask you some of these things just as a benefit to the audience and not myself. But I'm curious what the budget was. If you can give me a range. I know I don't want to put you on Front Street where you have to give me an exact number, but what was the range of this film budget wise?
I think that when we shot it, we were at somewhere between 500 and 600,000, or maybe a little less. But I think when we finished, we were at 800 or somewhere in that range, somewhere between 500,000 and $1 million. Between there. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I thought too. And I kept saying to myself, if I could ask Nick this, what would you do differently if you had, let's say, 1 to 2 million extra in budget? Mm-hmm. So just for the benefit of this audience, filmmakers that are listening, if your budget was 2.5 to 3.5, how would the film have been different?
Oh man, that's a good question. I think that I probably would have. I think that when you're able to get that kind of budget, one of the things that would happen is there would be more development time. I think the biggest thing that we were lacking with Buck Run was development. We had a script, we raised private equity money and we made it, and we were like, great. And then what we ran into was having to do reshoots. So I feel like when you raise the budget to that level, then you can develop it differently. And then I think if I had been able to develop it differently, then God, who knows what it would have become. I think I just would have been able to figure out. I think that I would have been able to figure out what I was trying to say faster. Yeah. And maybe would have been more efficient at doing it, because I think what happened is I figured out what I was trying to say as I was making the movie and after the fact. And so then we had to go back and we had to piecemeal some things together. Yeah. And that was probably the toughest part of that film, because there was a lot of repressed stuff going on. I mean, the story that it was dealt with a lot of stuff that was repressed in me. Yeah. And development might allow you to really pull those things out of yourself before you even get on set.
Yeah. I watched the movie and was dumbfounded by how parallel the movie was to the research we were doing to prepare for this conversation.
About me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, and even though you didn't write, it felt like you wrote the movie. And
I rewrote it. I mean, I ended up I added a lot of things, and it was completely, I mean, the way the movie's cut was a completely different way than it was written. Yeah. But the original script was written by David, who also grew up in small town Pennsylvania.
Right. You could tell, because Pennsylvania ended up being the character in the movie.
Yeah, totally.
In its own right. And I left, and please take this the right way, because I mean it. Sure. I mean it I've been in your shoes. I'm in your shoes. We're doing this thing together every day, trying to make this work. Yeah. The movie ended, and I thought, this movie was maybe $1 million and maybe one cast change, which is, I know, a difficult thing for me to say, because everybody was great in it, from being Nomadland.
Right. I get what you mean by that.
It had a Nomadland feel to it. Every bit of it was as good as that, just without the theatrical run and the buzz that you would get from not a better actor, but an actor with a better name, maybe, which is a really tough choice to have to make sometimes as a filmmaker. Yeah. Do you get what I'm saying there?
Yeah, I mean, it was heartbreaking. We'd get shortlisted when it was after we got shortlisted at a few of those really kind of blow the doors open film festivals, but didn't get in. We got into Palm Springs, which is great. It's a top 12 film festival in the world. Yeah. It was really amazing.
You kicked ass there too.
Yes, we had a great festival run, but it was like, you got really close to some things, but it didn't happen. So I know, I totally get what you mean by that. Yeah.
When you went out to try to do marketing and branding for the film, did you start in pre-pro or did you start in post?
No, that was a huge mistake. That was one of the things that we didn't know. We didn't have a sales agent. We didn't have any kind of we didn't do any work on that because we didn't know.
Yeah.
All we were thinking about was let's see if we can make the movie. And I'd learned a lot of mistakes from indie filmmakers that I was around. I was like, well, I know what I can do differently with an indie film. But I did not know about that. I didn't know that you could pre-sell. I didn't know that you could get like a publicity on board or a sales agent, any of that stuff. I had no idea. And none of us knew.
Yeah. It's something that we preach about a lot. And we'll hear from directors that say, well, I'm not a social media guy or gal. And, I'm not going to do that every day. So that's fine, but you got to do something.
Yeah. And
we got to put some sort of strategy together, because when you try to do this in post with everything else that happens in post, it's going to be too late, and you're going to be out of money. You're not going to have contingency. There's not even a line item for marketing on the whole budget. Yeah. So you can get yourself into some big trouble as a filmmaker. You can jam yourself up.
Yeah.
Because somebody has to know that you made this movie so that they can go, watch it. What social media site, if any, that you used gave you the most bang for your buck?
Probably Facebook with this movie. Yep. I think because it deals with small town America. And I think small town America is most predominantly on Facebook. Unfortunately, it's proven to be an unfortunate reality, but I think most people looked at it through Facebook. But I think at the festivals, Instagram helped. Mm-hmm. I just never, you're like you say, like I never got into Twitter. I still haven't. So we were predominantly using those two, but I think Facebook was the biggest at that time too. I think it's shifted over this last couple of years. Yeah. People's attention with Facebook or desire to be on it.
I think Facebook's got to be the right place for your audience for that particular film.
Yeah.
Whereas it's very clearly TikTok for Our Summer in Soying.
I've heard that now.
And TikTok gets more eyes than YouTube, which is an astonishing thing to say. More videos are uploaded to YouTube daily than one can watch in their entire lifetime. I believe that was the stat that I read.
Yeah.
So it's almost mind-boggling. It's like trying to conceptualize in your mind the gravitational pull of a black hole. You just can't do it without kind of driving yourself a little nutty and feeling like you're in a simulation.
Yeah.
Speaking of a simulation, Facebook has turned into Meta now, and they're going to do the metaverse. And I just read that someone bought some real estate in the metaverse for $2.1 million. And so they're going to have this business, I think, there where they're going to be able to sell like badges and different things for your avatar through the virtual business. This is a really mind-boggling thing.
Yeah.
So it started making me think, how much would it cost to buy a billboard for your movie in a virtual space?
Oh.
As a form of marketing in the next 10 years, 2 years even.
Right.
Like that's an interesting play. And this is coming from, my background being sort of this brand and marketing strategist for films. Yeah. Imagine if you've ever played sort of Grand Theft Auto GTA and these buses drive by and cars drive by. And then when it drives by, it has your film name on it and your branding, but you have to pay for that. Right.
Sure. Yeah.
So you go back to, your accountant and your producer say, yeah, I spent 20 grand on marketing in the metaverse. I'm like, what?
I don't really understand what the metaverse is. But that's an interesting.
It's a virtual world, Nick.
It's a world. Yeah.
Yeah. And it gets a lot of eyeballs, as it turns out. Right. So my guess is that in 5 years, if you bought an ad there, probably 100 million people might see it.
Right.
That's a lot of bang for your buck as well. Yeah. So anyway, I'm spitballing here.
No, that's great.
Back to you.
Sure.
I the thing I went through all these reviews of Buck Run, and so many of them glowing, some great articles. Some folks asking about the ending, the final scene of Buck Run, where you sort of have Nolan Lyons, again, great performance by that young man. And he just kind of is looking up at his father.
Yeah.
And I'm curious what you were trying to get out of Nolan in that. He sort of subtly changes his expression, but not very much. You linger on him for a second, and then we cut to black.
Yeah.
What was your intent with the ending there?
The whole idea with the ending was, because I think that it happens a lot with movies. When you have a movie like this, and this dawned on me later, this is something that I was ignorant about with films like this, where it's a kind of a trope where you have a teen boy trying to overcome something with either his father or with a bully. Yeah. This has happened a lot with indie films. And usually what happens is that the boy either finally defeats his father physically, or he defeats the bully, or he gets in a fight with the bully and he loses, but he at least stands up for himself. It's sort of this machismo. It feels like a kind of machismo thing. And I just didn't have that experience. Somebody I knew in recent years told me that it's really unfortunate that I never got punched as a kid growing up, because he's like, you don't know how to become a man if you don't get punched, which I thought, is that really what qualifies us to become adults? Especially if you're a man, do you become a man by doing something violent or by having something violent happen to you? So what I was trying to say with the film was that he becomes an adult by way of acceptance. He accepts something. He finally sits down with his dad. He eats the deer meat that he doesn't really want, but he does it. And he just accepts his dad for who he is.
Right.
Because you can't really defeat your parents. Your parents are your parents.
Yeah.
No matter how messed up they are.
Yeah.
They already had you. You already lost. If you're trying to beat your parents, they had you, they raised you, it's done. You're an adult now and you accept them. It doesn't mean that you condone or like what they do or get along with them even, but you accept who they are. So that was the whole point, was acceptance.
That's beautifully put. And it makes me think about the reason why there isn't any person that can be sort of Jesus-like or God-like, because in those books, in those tales, stories, gospel, however you want to say it, Jesus, God, whoever is able to love unconditionally. But the parent and child relationship precludes you from loving someone the way you love your child unconditionally. So it's impossible. It's the limitation we have as individuals, as men. I can never love you, Nick, as much as I love you. I can never love you like I love my 3 kids. And so therefore I can't love you unconditionally. But I can love you strong, but I just can't love you unconditionally. And I think the parents and kids need to, and I think this is kind of a nice little segue into my next question, but I think parents and kids need to understand that they're all they really have in the world in terms of unconditional love. The love trumps other types of love that are out there, and it does it naturally. Can't beat your parents is a great line, Nick. So
you can't win. It's
perfectly
over.
Put. And I think it works vice versa as well.
You lost.
Your kid can do something treacherous and you'll be the first in line to make 100 excuses for him or her. Right. And say, no, you don't really know so-and-so. I know that she chopped the heads off of 3 people. That's not really her. I grew up with her every day. So, that's parents and kids for you. Speaking of those reviews I read, in almost every interview you did, every review I read, you spoke about, or they talked about the parallels of the storyline between Buck Run and your own life, and how you basically are the Nolan Lyons character, and you're having to deal with accepting who your father is after your mom passes. What impact did the movie have on your own father when he saw it?
I think that what the impact overall was just that, because my father actually in reality is very different from William, aside from the fact that when my mother passed away, we had to kind of renegotiate our relationship and figure out what it meant to be in a relationship. And we were thrust into it because my mother was a huge force in my life,
right,
and in his life. And, she was the breadwinner. And also my mom exposed, similarly to in Buck Run, my mom exposed me and to a whole different world. And when she went away, because she was a very international choreographer, when she died, I was like, oh my God, all I have right now is small town Pennsylvania. That's my whole world. And my father and I were in it together. So I think that we got to have a relationship where we were both able to understand that we both grieved. Like I just had blamed him from the moment that my mother passed away. I was just mad at him for years. I have no idea why. I was just grieving, and I just put a lot of blame on him because I didn't know where to put blame. So I put blame on my father and put anger on my father. And I think we were just able to reconcile. We've never been as close as we have been since making that film and since he saw it.
What was the film the catalyst of that growth together, or was it something else?
No, that was definitely the catalyst, because when I was prepping to do it, I remember the moment that I turned to Nancy as I was working on digesting the script and how I was going to direct it. And I looked at her and I said, oh, my father grieved. Like my father was in pain too, that my mother passed away. And she was like, yeah, of course. But I didn't see that. I didn't get this was his wife of 20 plus years who he formed a family with, and he lost her.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was imperfect after it, but so was I.
Yeah. That my mom passed in 2007.
Oh.
And I remember saying and feeling, I said some insensitive things to my dad, and without really realizing they were insensitive, because of what you just said. I lost my mom.
Yeah.
You didn't lose your wife of 35 years.
Right.
And it took me a while to kind of understand that balance. I was a tough person to be around, and I didn't like to grieve outwardly. So I cried alone at night in the bed, but was steely faced, during the day. My dad couldn't do that, right? He's outwardly grieving. So it was, it was a tough time. That reminded me of that, though. We grieve as if we're the only one grieving, and then
I don't know why we do that
around us close.
I don't know why we do that. It's silly. Maybe it's just maybe it's the only way you can do it or something. I have no idea.
I don't think you get a lot of practice grieving. That's why. You just do it one time, and it's like, oh, well, that's my.
I don't want to do that ever again.
How do I do this? You just don't know. You just don't know what you don't know about it. So thank you so much for that. That was great. Brought up some interesting memories for me as well. Sure. By the way, for the audience's sake, when Nick says Nancy, he means Nancy Degnan.
Yes,
your fiance, but also your producing partner. We're going to talk about her a little bit later in just a few moments. But now. It's time for the speed round.
Oh, God.
And have some speed round questions for you. And I'll start with the one we ask almost of everyone.
Yeah.
Because the answers are so interesting and diverse. What are the two best pieces of advice you've received so far in your career? And who did they come from? Yeah,
there's two things come to mind, right? There's one, David Barker, who edited Buck Run. So an acclaimed, amazing editor and filmmaker himself.
Yes.
He told me when we were editing the film, he said, people don't come to see movies to see perfection. They come to have an experience, which I thought was really brilliant. And I've held on to that because you get so obsessed with if only I had more money, or if only this, you really want, especially in editing, you're like, this scene has to be perfect and that scene has to be perfect. And you miss that the sum of is greater than the, I can't remember the phrase, but you want the whole to be better than the just the parts.
Right. The sum is greater than its parts. Yep.
Yes. If you focus on what is the experience that the audience is having versus how do I make every moment of this movie perfect? It's going to be an easier, at the very least, you're going to have an easier time, but you're probably going to make a better film because no film is perfect. It's not a perfect art form. So, and then I remember, James LeGros, who plays William, this very veteran actor. I was sitting with him afterwards. We were at a cafe on Beechwood in LA, and we came to him and we were like, oh, we need to do some ADR for the movie. And he said to me, he was like, making the movie, when you make it, especially an indie movie in particular, when you make an indie movie, it's like climbing Mount Everest. Mm-hmm. And when you finish the movie, it's like you've gotten to the summit, you've gotten to the peak, but now you got to get back down the mountain to Kilimanjaro without dying. You got to survive the descent.
Yeah.
You're not done yet. And that was like, cause I felt done.
Yeah.
I really did. When we shot the movie, I was like, great. We did. I had no idea what was to come in the next like year of post-production, et cetera.
That's something we always talk about in our indie talks, is this idea that when we engage initially with a filmmaker, they're pitching hard, and the film and the thing they've written is their baby. They've worked on it for 2 or 3 years. Usually it might be the only thing they ever get to shoot. And when it's over, they'll just give their baby to anybody because they're exhausted.
It's done. Please take it.
Please take my baby. Please do something with it. I'm done with this. Yeah. So it's an exhausting thing to get to the summit. You see the sky up there. The air is a little bit thinner. You see the whole world for what it is. You take it in, take a deep breath, and you start going back down. And it's just critical that you have the juice that you planned to come back down, right? A lot of times the plan was to get to the top, to get to the summit. And then you didn't actually pack enough energy bars and protein shakes to get down.
Yeah.
So that's...
You end up like Jack Nicholson at the end of The Shining, like frozen.
Exactly.
On the mountainside.
What are the biggest creative and business mistakes you see newcomers making? I'm sure you're around a lot of crew and filmmakers regularly.
You said business mistakes? What was the other mistakes?
Creative and business.
Oh, creative. Creative for sure. The biggest creative mistake that I see people make is I feel like they don't get to the core of what they're trying to say in the movie. And that's a big problem. Like I remember there's a filmmaker who has his just, like I just go to see films and I go, there's a built-in misogyny in this, or there's a built-in...
Yeah.
And you're not getting it. And it's a big problem. It's a problem that somebody's allowed you to make that movie in the first place, I suppose. But it's also a problem that you're not getting what's at the core of this, and you're not transforming it. You're not doing anything about it.
Yeah.
I think that when you make a movie, the biggest creative thing that you should be able to do is figure out what you're trying to say.
That is huge.
And transform it.
It's huge. It's very nuanced what you just said as well. And I can apply this back to learning how to be a better songwriter back when I did music exclusively. And there would be a difference. I had a singing group, and another person in the group would like to write songs. And in all of his songs, there would be something missing. And I'd say, maybe you don't win. Maybe you shouldn't win. If you're the protagonist in the song, maybe you shouldn't win in every song. Right. Like, we got to figure out what you're trying to say.
Right.
Like, how is this different from the next? Because we were doing pop R&B. How is this different from the next pop R&B song out there? Because what you've reduced us to is who can sing better, us or the next group, because we're not saying anything.
Right.
We don't want to be in that game because we can't sing as good as Johnny Gill or whoever else is out there, like your Boyz II Men or whoever. Right. Like, and maybe we can get close, but we don't want to be in that kind of game.
Yeah.
Because the market already has that. That's another concept, Nick, that maybe we'll talk about on an indie talk in the future. Is a lot of times if you're trying to do something like someone, it's a problem because that already exists in the market.
It's done.
And then that product's already been paid for, and risk and accountability has already been loaded into that person doing that thing. Yeah. So we don't need another person to do that thing.
Yeah.
Like, I think if another rapper has Little in front of their name, I'm going to stab myself in the neck. Like, I can't have another rapper with Lil whatever, Lil Nick, Lil Chris, Lil this, no more. Yeah. So other adjectives to describe how diminutive you are, please.
Yeah.
Okay. Any business mistakes you noticing out there?
Business mistakes. I mean, I made them of not dealing with how to, that's a huge one. And I'm really glad that's something you're talking about, because if you're not prepping for the climbing down the mountain, that's a big mistake. And I think that's what a lot of people do. Yeah. Is they it's so hard to just make the movie in the first place that you put all your effort into that and you're not even thinking about what's next. Editing is a huge, I mean, the way you edit a film is so important. And how you get to edit a film is so important. I see a lot of filmmakers editing their own films, especially at the beginning, which is also a big mistake. Because if you edit your own film, you could drive yourself absolutely insane. You could be clinically crazy. Yeah. From doing that, you should be put into asylum, literally, because you're going to lose your mind and you're going to think it's awful and get so depressed. And I think that's also a business mistake. And also, the way that the relationship that you make with people who are investing in your film is really important. Yeah.
I think being on the other side of that, I know that that Julio's your guy, Julio Lopez, on the financing side, being that guy for a lot of filmmakers. The thing I just want them to remember is that my money doesn't grow on trees. And yes, I would like you to care for it. Yeah. And that more money comes, the more accountable you are to it.
Yes.
That somehow there are, and this is beyond filmmakers, this is just growing up. Sometimes you get taught that the thing you want to do is you want to skate accountability and get away from responsibility. And then you're never to blame for anything. And that's good. And then you'll be the one that gets money because you were never bad. Right. But in real life, and this is the trick, the exact opposite is true. Sure. The more responsible you are and the more accountable you are, the more money gets thrown at you. Yeah. It's like, oh, yeah, I know what that person's going to do. Yeah. Money loves certainty.
Yes. Which is hard in film. Yeah. Which is hard in film because it's so uncertain. It can be.
Yes. 1,000 things can go wrong in the film. So the last thing we need is a filmmaker that's also yeah. Like, I don't want to unpredictable. I don't want you to pretend that you're Quentin Tarantino for the sake of being, eccentric.
Yeah. And getting me to invest or something, or getting an investment and then it falls apart as we're making it. Yeah.
Yeah. Be accountable, be responsible. Yeah. If you say you're going to execute a thing, execute a thing. If you say this is what the plan is, do the plan. And if it doesn't work out, be the first person to say, I fucked this up. Right. Because I'll write you another check. The thing I want to say to filmmakers is you don't understand that I'm your angel. Yeah. I'm literally your angel. I gave you more money than your dad gave you, than your mom, than your sister, than any, like, I am the person that's got your back in this world, financially, at least. Yeah. So let's work together and be accountable, be responsible. So I love that. And again, you say things that touch home with me quite a bit. If you had 1 month to teach someone just off the street, Nick, if you had a month to teach someone how to direct, what would be the first 3 things you'd teach them? If they said, hey, Nick, I've got a short film, I've got to direct it in 1 month, I've got the financing, I'm ready to go, but I have no clue what I'm doing. Can you make me competent? What would be the first 3 things you'd teach them?
I think that one would be to get to the, like we talked about, like get to the bottom of what you're trying to say, so that you're actually transforming something and you're actually like coming through to the other side on something, whatever it is. Cause we want to make sure that the audience has that experience along with you. Yeah. 2 would be to form a visual language. I think a visual language is really important. Like, how are you visually going to tell the story? Study films, find a language that works for you, put a bunch of pieces together, however you want to do it, storyboards, take stills from movies, which is very time consuming though. So that might take a month in and of itself to do. Yeah. It's a short film. So I think maybe we can pull it off. And the third thing is really about creating the environment where you can have, like, you want to cast great people, or you want to cast great actors, bring on great crew, and provide an environment for them where they can be great. That's your whole job.
All right. For those listening at
let
home,
them be great.
The Nick Frangione 3 would be find your voice, figure out what you really want to say, and make sure it comes through. Number 2, learn the visual language of your film, storyboarding, script, how you're going to shoot, locations, etc. 3rd, build the environment. Build an environment that lets everyone be the best version of themselves, cast, crew, producers, etc. Those are really great pieces of advice. And Nick, you've been really great. I just have a few more questions if you have a little time.
Yeah, of course.
You said, or you've been quoted as saying, my greatest enemy has often been myself, my fears, doubts, and resentments. What resentments were you talking about? What resentments were you carrying forward from your past? And when were you your own worst enemy?
Oh man. I didn't even know that I said that. I mean, my own worst enemy, especially like, for example, I think a lot of the reason why I didn't set myself up for certain things, I'm very impatient. Mm-hmm. I've learned to be patient, but like with Roxy, I was like, let's just make a feature. I don't want to learn how to do it. I want to make one. So let's make one. Right. And then we learn how to do it by making it. But I'm my own worst enemy because I set myself up for that. I mean, me drinking a 6-pack every night, it's my fault. I'm the one that said, make a feature. And then I think I got angry with Roxy was a lot of me getting angry with people. And I learned that lesson because, the truth was that I was flawed as a director. It wasn't their fault. It was me.
Right.
So if I'm setting myself up for something that I don't know how to do and then getting angry at other people because I don't know how to do something, it's just silly. It's just a stupid thing to do. So, I can get in my own way in that regard. I can get in my own way in terms of my impatience. I really need to I've learned that lesson that I have a tendency to jump ahead. Yeah. Which is good in a business. You need somebody like that in a business, I think, who can look at the future and figure out what you should do. But there's all this stuff in between that you got to do, and that stuff's important too.
It's a wonderful position to be in to know what your blind spot is.
Yeah.
I'm still learning about blind spots. And, for me, being a former athlete, and it kills me just to say the word former, but being competitive, I don't realize what my face is doing sometimes. So I'll say the words and then I'll say, what was the big deal with that? And they're like, no, you were being a dick. And I'm like, wait, was my face dicky? And then we'll say, well, yeah, your face was really dicky in that moment. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know I was making a dick face. I was just saying normal words and I felt normal about it, but it came off intense. Yeah. It came off like I was pushing, or maybe it came off arrogant or whatever. Right. So we're all just washing our own back here. We're watching our own back here, Nick. We're trying to be better people. Did you ever reconcile with the crew of Roxy? Were you able to ever apologize to them? Or
I did. I called them all. I realized it, and I called them all. It was particularly the actors. I would get really frustrated with the actors.
Yeah.
And I called all of them, and I was like, it really had nothing to do with you. There was one actor after we shot Roxy, he cried. He was in the car with me and he cried and he said, I thought that I was a bad actor after working with you.
Wow.
And I thought, that's really not the way you want to be as a director. You don't want actors to feel like that. Yeah. And I was able to tell him, like, it had nothing to do with you. It was entirely my fault. I just didn't know what to tell you, I didn't know how to direct you.
Man,
I didn't know what to do.
That's
my fault.
Well, that's a good moment. We get lucky sometimes when we have people in our lives that will just be honest with us, even if it makes them cry, to be honest, because it helps us so much. A person where no one's able to tell you where you hurt them, that person's kind of lost. Yeah. So kudos to that actor.
Yeah.
One of the reoccurring themes on this podcast is, from our guests, is talking about the dynamics of having someone in your life that's also creative that you're trying to work and build something with, and the difficulty in that, sometimes the glory in it. I'm curious how you and Nancy make this work. Is there any advice you can give to the audience, people who are in relationships, maybe are married, maybe, have someone who has just as many ambitions in the same career field as they do?
Yeah.
About managing the relationship and making sure egos and ambitions don't get in the way.
Yeah. I mean, making Buck Run, Nancy and I had a really hard time in our relationship. And thankfully we worked it out afterwards and we're stronger for it, but it was really hard. But it's also really amazing. If you have a partner, if your romantic partner is also your creative partner, it's incredible. To me, that's like one of the most, I'm so happy that that's the thing. And I know that Nancy is too, like we talk about that all the time, but it's also like when you fight, when you butt heads, you butt heads. So it's either really amazing or it's really hard. But I think the thing that we really figured out after Buck Run was it's like what you're saying. I mean, you have to really be cognizant of what both people want at all times.
Yeah.
And you have to be each other's, because I think you can get really consumed creatively when you're at the head of something. You can get really consumed by it and it becomes its own relationship. You end up having a relationship with that thing that you're making.
Yeah.
And you have to be aware of, I guess my biggest advice for people that are doing that is to take care of that relationship, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if there's a one size fits all way of doing it, but fight for that relationship. We fought for our relationship and we became out stronger because of it. And we focused on how can we do this better the next time? We didn't we're not just going to keep with the same way we did it, which ended up with us fighting. Why would we do that? Like focus on how you can do it differently in the future.
I think that's really smart because I've met so many creatives where I say, well, they're just never going to have a relationship because they're already married to the thing they're trying to do.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And there's no space for anyone else.
Right.
And they've gotten too comfortable. They're 35 now. It's like, just keep going. It's not going to work.
That's your relationship. That's going to be your relationship for the rest of your life. Yeah.
That's it. And then other people just figure it out like yourself. You're a man of wonderful taste. And as we mentioned at the top of this conversation, we are at the beginning of a new horizon. Yes. 2022.
Yeah.
And that means Oscar season is just around the corner.
Sure.
Can you give me your best 3 films of 2021?
Oh man. See, I always do this. I never stay up with the times. It's like music, like I always listen, I'll find a song and I'll tell Nancy like, oh my God, this is an amazing song. She's like, that's a song from 10 years ago. I always do this.
I'm still playing Blonde from Frank Ocean, and that came out in 2016. Like I play it like it came out yesterday.
I am trying to even be aware of what's happening right now. And like, can you remind me of what's out and what's going on? And I've seen it or not.
I'll tell you the best movie I saw this year.
Yeah.
Was Come On, Come On.
I haven't seen it.
Joaquin Phoenix. And I forget the kid's name, but the kid, Floria, the kid is unbelievable. Then I found out this damn kid has a British accent. I'm like, he's British. I was blown away. He played an American kid. He's going to get you. Now, in fairness, I haven't seen Spencer yet.
Okay.
And I know that's getting a lot of buzz. But for me, I think the movie that sticks out to me the most is Come On, Come On. The Humans was really good. I love the way Richard Linklater was great in it. I love the way that, I said Richard Linklater. That's not the right Richard. I love the way that the movie was shot. It gives you this illusion that there's a house 2-story house that Amy Schumer and the rest of the cast
are yes,
they're climbing up and down, and it wasn't done that way. They had the two house. They built a set and put them side by side, and the rest of it's movie magic.
Right.
Making you think they're going up and down these steps into these different levels, and they really just built 2 or 3 levels side by side. And it's a one set movie that's so hard to pull off.
Yeah, it's like it's based on a play, I believe.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is. It was great. And there's a movie that's a foreign film called Huda's Salon that is very underrated. And it's happening, I want to say in Turkey, maybe Syria. And it's about a woman who goes in to get her haircut at her normal salon and then gets set up. And you get a good sense of sort of the religious conflict there between the Shiites and the Sunnis. I would say check out Huda's Salon as well. So anyway, those are my picks. And if you want to text me your picks later, Nick, then and I'll put them in I'll have Elise put those in the show notes so people can read Nick's top 3. So just text those to me later. Yeah. This has been a blast. I can't believe how much I've or how fast this has gone. And like we've been talking for an hour. It feels like we've been on for 15 minutes. That means I'm learning a lot. I hope the audience is learning a lot. And if every interview for the rest of this year is like this one, then I'm in for a treat. And so is the audience. Can you tell everybody where they can find you on social media and on the internet and maybe even see some of your work? Yeah,
I mean, you can go to nickfrangione.com. And that'll give you, the main site to, Buck runs all over the place, DirecTV, any kind of on demand, iTunes, Amazon Prime. Now we're on Tubi. So it's out there. It's in a variety of places, YouTube, wherever you want to look. And I am, I got the website, I'm on Instagram. I'm still not really doing Twitter and I really should. But Instagram is really that's kind of my thing. What's your handle on Instagram? Media. It's just Nick __ Frangione. That's all it is.
And then YouTube is the same.
I don't have a YouTube. I don't have a YouTube channel.
Oh, no. You didn't say you said but you said the movie was on YouTube. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
I watched it on Amazon. So
cool.
So anyone that wants to watch it, for sure, it's definitely on Amazon. And if it costs money, don't trip. Support independent film. Spend the $3.99 and rent it. Yeah, and it's worth it because you would spend that on a latte, and the latte doesn't even like you. It doesn't even know you. Like Nick likes you, and he wants to help you be a better filmmaker. So go support indie film, and trust me, guys like him are going to turn around and support you when you make your film as well. Nick, we'll end on this. What was your New Year's resolution, and what's a good resolution for filmmakers?
Oh, my New Year's resolution. I really just, honestly, this year I was just like, a lot of times you get to the end of the year, especially if you're an actor or filmmaker, you're like, this is the year. This is going to be the big year. And I didn't, and I've definitely done that in the past. And this time I guess it's kind of like I surrendered to whatever's going to happen. I just was like, oh, this is going to be, I could feel that it was going to be good without having to say, it's going to be this. It has to be this. Because I think when you get attached to whatever your year is going to be, if you're attached to something, you might drive yourself crazy. And then you might try to do it. And then you fall off the wagon trying to do it. It's like trying to work out. I saw a lot of people jogging yesterday and today. And I'm like, I'm not going to see you jogging in a couple days. You're done.
That's right.
They had all the jogging gear. They had all the proper gear. And I was like, you bought that. You just bought that.
You're going to start this year off right.
Right. And then you're going to be done.
Life is a lot like a film though, Nick. Like when it comes to New Year's resolutions, I used to be that guy that bought the brand new running gear and was running on the first day of the new year. And then about 6 years ago, I found life design, and I also found a great book called The Surrender Project, which I think everybody should go buy. It's really great. But the life design thing was huge because it was like the development process for filmmaking.
Yeah.
Except you were doing it for your life. So what you do is you sit down with this piece of paper and you write down who are the 5 people you want to be around the most. What are the 5 things you love doing the most? Can any of those 5 things make you money? If yes, move forward. If no, go backwards, kind of thing. How often do you want to work out? How often do you want to watch TV or read? When do you want to wake up in the morning? When do you want to go to sleep at night? You write all this stuff down. It's critical to write it down.
Yeah.
Because if you didn't write it down, it's not a plan. It didn't really happen. It's got to get out of your head and into the conscious space, into the dark matter. Yeah. And once you write a plan down, then you're very unlikely to backslide on your jogging routine, because now you have planned that you will run every day at 7 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. at this location. Yeah. So the whole thing's done for you. Now you just have to get off your ass and go do it. Which is hard enough, but it's really hard and nearly impossible if there's no plan. Yeah. If you have no plan to do it and don't know how you're going to do it, and you haven't created an infrastructure for yourself so that you can do it. Some guys and gals are so busy with their kids and their husbands and their wives, et cetera, they actually have to break out the space to do it. Yeah. So when they try to do it in the new year, they're off work, they're out of school, so it's easy. And then their regular life takes over and they're like, okay, I missed this day. It's no big deal. But then they miss 2, 3, 4 in a row, and then it's over. Yeah. So go plan it out. And I like what you said. Just surrender as well. Yeah. Surrender to these expectations that other people have. Figure out what you want to do, and then plan and do the pre-pro and the development of your life accordingly. Yeah. Film works in mysterious ways, I would just say. So sometimes you have to surrender to some things and find your flow. Find your flow, surrender to some things. It's a great place to end this conversation and perfectly on tone with who you are. Brother, this has been a blast. And I just can't thank you enough for jumping on and doing this. Yeah, thank you for having me. This is great. And thank you for doing this for filmmakers. Hey, we're going to keep doing it for filmmakers. We have a big year in front of us. And so stay tuned, keep your ear to the ground, and we'll be in touch with you soon, of course, as well. Best of luck in everything that you do, you and Nancy and Julio together. Hopefully we can work together in the future. But until next time, take care. Take care. Good. Bye. Peace. You've been listening to the Make It Podcast. To find out more information about this week's topics, including links to relevant blog posts, projects, and indie creatives, please visit our website at www.bonsai.film. If you haven't already, you can join our podcast community on Apple Podcasts or the podcast app of your choice by searching for Make It Bonsai Creative, and the show will pop right up. You now have the opportunity to support the production of this podcast. If you love Make It and are a true fan of what we're trying to accomplish in the indie film community, please visit www.bonsai.film and click Contribute. Contributions start at only $5 monthly. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at _Bonsai Creative, and on Facebook by searching for Bonsai Creative. You can provide feedback to us via email at contact@bonsai.film. And you can follow me, Chris, on Twitter at Flaming Your Heart. That's FLAMEINURHEART. And of course, if you're looking to take a big step towards your filmmaking success, go to www.bonsai.film and click on Services to explore a variety of offerings, from keynotes and panels to pitch readiness assessments and so much more. You have everything to gain. Until next time, be better, be creative, be engaged, and thank you for listening.